Welcome to the Canadian Beef Cattle Podcast, presented by the Beef Cattle Research Council. The most popular content from beefresearch.ca, available on the go. Before we get into this week's episode, a quick message from the BCRC.
Knowing where you are helps you plan where you want to go with your beef herd. Whether your goals include heavier weaning weights, a more uniform coat color, or other traits. Genetic change happens through sire and replacement selection alongside culling. Some goals are shaped by genetics and others by environment and management. The Beef Cattle Research Council's 7-part online course will guide you in tracking genetic improvements through practical record keeping, helping you turn herd data into informed decisions. Find the link to the Tracking Genetic Improvements course in the show notes. This episode is titled Clean Cuts. Can we improve cleaning at packing plants? And features the BCRC's Science Director, Dr. Reynold Bergen.
Hi there, I'm Reynold. This Research on the Record article originally appeared in the July 2026 issue of Canadian Cattleman magazine, and we've posted it on the beefresearch.ca website with the publisher's permission. Today we're talking about clean cuts. Can we improve cleaning at beef packing plants? So microbes are everywhere, all the time. Your body contains about 30 trillion human cells and even more microbial cells. So the breath you just took probably inhaled a few microbes, probably more than a few if you're around other people or pets or livestock. And that means that microbes are circulating at packing plants too. Most of these microbes are harmless, but there's some that can shorten the shelf life of beef, and there's a few, like Shiga toxin-producing E.coli or STEC, that can cause food poisoning. So E.coli 0157 is an STEC. Now, beef is an excellent nutrient source for people, we all know that, but it's also an excellent nutrient source for microbes. So if microbes get themselves established on conveyor belts or other equipment at a processing plant, they've got a ready food source that'll help support their growth. So as a result of this, Canadian packing plants work very, very hard to keep their facilities clean and their beef products safe. So these facilities are cleaned after each shift, and here's how they do it. First thing is they scrape away all the visible meat and fat scraps, and then they pressure wash the conveyor belts and the equipment and the floors, and that's step one. In step two, they apply a detergent to help break down the fat residues, and then they rinse that off. And then the third step is to apply a sanitizer that kills whatever microbes might not have been washed off. So Dr. Yang from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada's Lacombe Research Station and her team studied how microbial numbers change as that three-step cleaning process proceeds. And there's a link to the published research paper and the online version of this if you want to read the science for yourself. So what did they do? Well, they worked with a major beef packing facility, and they collected samples from conveyor belts, from floor drains, and from the air before cleaning started. They collected them again after step one, the pressure washing, after the detergent in step two, and then after the third sanitizing step. And so all those samples, they counted the bacteria and identified which ones were present in each of those samples. And what did they learn? Well, at every time point, they found that there were more bacteria in the drain samples than in the air or the conveyor belts. And that makes sense. I mean, gravity is real, right? Gravity leads wash water and bacteria down to the drain. And so there's more bacteria that congregate there. They also learned that bacterial numbers changed as the cleaning progressed through steps 1 through step 3. But they didn't really change the way you might expect. Bacterial numbers in the drain samples were high before cleaning started, and after the initial scraping and power washing step, that's not surprising, right? There's large numbers of bacteria from the equipment and floor getting washed down into the drain. So not surprising there's large numbers there. But they also found that bacterial numbers on the conveyor belts were higher after the pressure washing than they were before cleaning even started. That's kind of surprising, right? And then the same thing happened with bacterial numbers in the air after pressure washing. So what happened there? Well, anyone who's ever used a pressure washer, put their thumb over the end of a hose to clean anything, knows that water pressure loosens and removes stuck-on grime and dirt. But it also splashes and it creates a mist. And that mist isn't just water. It also carries fine particles of grime and dirt and microbes. So in the packing plant, that initial pressure washing step dislodged some of the bacteria from the belts and the drains and shot it up into the air. And the equipment undoubtedly looked cleaner after it was pressure washed. But as that mist settled back down, the bacteria from the air settled back down too, and that recontaminated the conveyor belts. Now, thankfully, the bacterial numbers dropped back down to the pre-cleaning levels after the detergent had been applied and rinsed off in step 2, and then stayed low after the sanitizer was applied in step 3. Now, the good news is that these cleaning steps were most effective against bacteria like there's a couple called Pseudomonas and Acinetobacter, and those are 2 that cause spoilage and shorten the shelf life of packaged beef. But most importantly, the numbers of E. coli on the conveyor belts dropped continuously as cleaning progressed from steps 1 through 3. And in fact, a lot of the conveyor belt samples never contained any E. coli at all, and it wasn't found in any of the air samples. And fewer than half of the drain samples contained E. coli. And that's all E. coli, not just the Shiga toxin-producing E. coli or S-Tech that are a human health concern. There's hundreds of different strains of E. coli. S-Tech would have been a very small fraction of the very few E. coli that they found here. So what does this mean to you? Well, it means the Canadian beef packers clean their plants very effectively. Food safety records support this. Back in, last year, 2025, there were 263 food recalls in Canada. And that's across all food, not just beef. 6 of those recalls, so 2.3% of the total, involved beef. And only 2 of those recalls, less than 1%, were for microbe-contaminated beef. Both of those recalls were for S-Tech, but neither of them was associated with a human illness. And both of those recalls were traced back to a grocery store, but not a beef packing plant. Food safety doesn't start and end with the beef packer. It needs to continue all the way through the store and all the way through your kitchen and all the way to your plate. Future research may be able to develop improved methods of pressure washing that minimize the numbers of microbes that get shot up into the air and settle back down onto the equipment. But that sort of thing is really risky research for commercial packers to do. If they got something that works, they're really hesitant to experiment with new cleaning methods until they're confident that they won't accidentally make things worse. That kind of research, development, and demonstration work really needs to be done in a pilot-scale research facility before the industry can adopt it. Bottom line is that Dr. Yang, who did this research, was relocated to the Lethbridge Research Station when Ag Canada eliminated the Lacombe Research Station in January. Now, we're grateful that Ag Canada recognized the value of the work that she does and kept her. But the Lacombe Research Abattoir that they cut is closing. And that's going to make it extremely difficult for any new food safety knowledge coming out of her microbiology lab to turn into commercial practices that make Canadian beef and our consumers safer. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you again next time.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. You can find all relevant links and information at beefresearch.ca or in the show notes. The Beef Cattle Research Council is funded by the Canadian Beef Cattle Checkoff and strives for excellence in the production of Canadian beef, cattle, and forage through research, innovation, and extension. Tune in every Tuesday as the Canadian Beef Cattle Podcast delivers straightforward insights, expert information, and a wealth of practical knowledge for Canadian beef producers. Subscribe now.